Hey friends, welcome back. I don't know why I always start the podcast differently, but it doesn't really matter. Anyways, I have a guest with me today. I have Michelle, and I am super excited for our conversation. We are going to talk about her story and how she works with people and all of the things, because it is just an amazing story. Like all of it, you have so many like layers to your story and all of the things. So go ahead, introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. So I'm Michelle Vande Hey, and my what I want to say, my like technical titles is I am a certified holistic life coach and a certified trauma sensitive yoga facilitator, which is TCTSYF. Um, and I essentially help people with compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma, and burnout. And I really mostly focus on what I call mission driven leaders, mission driven business owners, and entrepreneurs, people who have a passion for making a difference in the world, that want to be able to keep making the difference, but maybe feel like they're kind of just burning out, or they just feel like, I don't know how I can keep doing this. And they have a big heart and want to keep giving, but then they don't have anything left of themselves to give to themselves or their families, or maybe and sometimes too, it's like their families are taking a lot of their energy depending on how much caretaking they need to do. So, just like helping people really like come back to themselves so that they can make decisions that are more in alignment and like be more confident in their decision making at home, at work, with everything. So it's like we're not saying yes to the things we should be saying no to, and that we're saying yes to the right things. And it's that's always I feel like that's always a work in progress for me. I actually
Mm.
this week just uh was like in the process of working on some like workshops and some classes that I was going to do in collaboration with other people. And I found it was just like, it just feels like a no to me. And so I just said, I don't think this is going to work. And being willing to like disappoint people in the process, which is
Yeah.
very difficult for me because I am
Hmm.
tend to be more of a people pleaser and like a giver of all things. And so, yeah, so it's continues to be a journey, and I learn from my own experiences as well as clients and other people.
Yeah, and that's so huge. Like, I feel like everyone needs that because it's so hard to, especially when you are someone who wants to truly help people and you are very giving and all of that, you do kind of like want to say yes to everything. I do that a lot and I stretch myself thin all of the time. And it is really hard to learn how to say no to things. Like it's truly, really hard.
Yeah, especially, and I think that the other piece of it is like the guilt of
Yes.
saying no, like that's can be such a challenging thing of like I'm saying no and I feel really guilty saying no. And I think about it in this way too. Um, in the context of like giving like financially to organizations,
Hmm.
we do a lot of like monthly donations to organizations that we align with. So when I go to the grocery store and they're doing this promotion of like, oh, you round up to the next dollar to give, when I say no, even though it's really hard to say no because it's for the children's hospital or whatever, I also know, okay, I'm being intentional about this over here. So it's hard for me to say no to that.
Yeah.
But then when I get to my car, I also know it's like it's okay for me to say no. And if that person in line is judging me for saying no, that's on them, not on me. So that's like a simplified version of that, but it's that same idea of like,
Hmm.
of course, like I want to give to every organization, but I
Yeah.
can't. And so if I say these intentional yeses and kind of have the system already in place, then when other people come to me, it's easier for me to, it helps me to say no, knowing that I'm already doing what I can.
Yes. And that's like such a good example, actually, of that because I feel like that all the time. And I always feel so bad every time. And sometimes I'll be like, yeah, sure. And But then when I say no, every time I feel so bad and I will like think about it for so long afterwards. And I'm like, oh, I should have just done it. Like you just like keep thinking about it, but it's like, it's okay. There are other things that you do. Like you don't have to beat yourself up for the one thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell us, whatever, how did you initially get into doing what you do now?
Yeah, so it was quite a journey.
Yeah,
It's funny
yeah.
because like I was in like a health and nutrition business for a while, and so there was a lot of like seminars you go to and like professional development, personal development, and I love that kind of stuff anyways. I've just like been that way since I was I would guess a young adult or like in my early 20s. And so as I was, coming into a career and networking with people and just, sharing things on social media, something common that people would say to me is like, "Oh, Michelle, you should be a coach." And I was always kind of like, "Well, I don't want to be a coach. Like that's I don't want to tell
Yeah,
people what to do." And I didn't have a good what do I want to say? Like I don't know, the coaching industry just seemed a little like icky to me.
yeah.
Um, and so I just never really thought it was an option for me. And then um, a big thing that happened for me was my son died about 7 years ago. And it was a huge, just like, you know, my life turned upside down. And
Hmm.
um, I had to really like dig into like all these, like the and that trauma, but then like it also brought up just like other past things that I didn't even think were things.
Yeah.
Um, and so about a year after that, and like I was doing like in-home daycare and like I was a personal care provider at one point, and even though like that for me like wasn't ever something I planned to do long term, it was just like it made sense and I love taking care of other people. And um so I was talking with a friend and she was like, Michelle, you should be a coach. You're already doing it with your health and nutrition. You're just not charging people for it. And I was like, yeah, I get that. But like this friend of mine was like, I'm like, I don't want to be a coach. But
Yeah.
she really just said like, well, what else are you going to do then? Because I was moving out of doing in-home daycare because my daughter was going to school full time. My daycare kids were starting to go to school full time. And really the only thing that was keeping me at home was my son. And then if I was going to take on any other kids, but it just like everything kind of came to this place where it's like, I have this space. What do I want to do? Do I want to keep being this daycare person? No. Like I
Yeah.
knew that was a no, but I was like, what else am I going to do? And so something important she said to me, she's like, do it in your way. You don't have to do it like everyone else is doing it. And so I started
Hmm.
out as a health coach and was just like, okay, I'm going to be like an affordable health coach. And I got a few clients, and it didn't take long for me to realize that most of my clients need to work with their mindset and their
Yeah.
beliefs as opposed to knowing what to eat and what not to eat. And I wasn't really looking for something in particular, but I had a new friend that I had met that was a psychotherapist, and she was getting into coaching. And we were talking, and she's like, "Oh, you should check out this workshop that I'm going to." So I checked it out, and of course, like they were selling business coaching, but then also a holistic life coaching certification, and I was just like, I don't want to do this, but something inside me
Yeah.
was telling me I should. I was like, I didn't want to be a coach, and I sure as hell did not want to be a life coach because those are the ones that tell people how to live their lives, right? Like, it's like all these
Yes.
negative things.
Yeah.
And so um I I just dove into the holistic life coaching certification, and it was like that was like the end of January of 2020. And this person used to do like 3-day intensives for their in-person intensives for their certification. And like that very first weekend, it was like I got all these like downloads and things like that where it was like, you should be helping women who have lost children. And to me, it was like, again, it was like one of those things where other people were probably like, yeah, duh, Michelle, that makes sense because of just like where you're at.
Yeah.
But to me, I was like, who am I to do that? Because just because I have that one lived experience doesn't mean I know anything about anyone else's grief or anything like that. And at the time,
Yeah.
like trauma, like helping people with trauma scared me because I was like, I don't
Yeah.
know what. Um, so I started coaching women after child loss and doing that for several years. And then I got into doing more speaking and facilitating at events. And that led me to connecting with more like business leaders or nonprofit leaders and realizing that these people that are very passionate about the work that they're doing were losing themselves in their work. Like I kind of talked about, of just like being so passionate about their work
Yeah.
and being so exhausted, so overwhelmed. And so yeah, so then I kind of started shifting. And I kind of had been feeling I wanted to make a shift, but I didn't know. Again, I was kind of like questioning, well, who am I to be helping these people? Um, and but I knew I wanted to make a bigger impact. And so I felt like if I'm impacting someone who is a business owner or a leader that is helping all of these people, then I am indirectly helping all of those people. And if I can
Yeah.
help people doing the mission driven work, then that makes a bigger impact. So that really
Mhm.
felt good to me. And that's kind of how I made the transition into where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And I just like, I love though that you talk about and being aware of like you were skeptical of like the whole life coaching thing and like just the coaching thing in general because so many people are like, well, that's exactly what I want to do because it is a it is an industry where you can come in and it's seen as like you can make all this money and you can do all these things and like that's how a lot of people get into it. And I think like when you're actually questioning whether it's like, should I do this because I don't want to, be seen in that way, you're not going to do those things. Like you're
Yeah.
not going to be that person. You are actually in this for the right reasons to actually help people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And it's like it's interesting because making this shift, I kind of like dove right in again. I was like, okay, and it was feeling really good. And just over this past year, I've been kind of doing more like soul searching and not doing a lot of selling and workshops and things like that. And I feel like I'm coming out of that, but like allowing myself that space to
Yeah.
do more of that, of like, am I still feeling like in alignment with those values?
Yeah.
Uh, of like helping first.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that that's so important. And even when you said, like, your friend told you, you can make this, you can do whatever you want. You can make this look however you want. And that's how I always see it. That's how I feel about business and, how we can structure all of this is you can literally do this however you want. And I think that it's so important that you do take times where you're kind of like reassessing things and making sure it is what you truly want and that you're still like, aligned with that and going after those things. Yeah. So tell me about your when stories because that's
Yeah.
a big thing that you're promoting right now. And I want to hear more about that because I think that that's super important. And I just like, I love it. I have watched it. I absolutely love it. I think that, like, when I watched it, I was like, you look like you were just made for speaking. Like, you just like speak all the time. And this is like the thing that you do.
I love that. Thank you for saying that because I mean, I do feel like I was kind of made for speaking. Like I loved speaking and inspiring people and giving people the opportunity to maybe think a little bit differently.
Hmm.
Um, I will say so when stories like WHEN, like when everything changed, it's kind of like a TEDx style talk, but
Hmm.
it's focused more on your story about a moment in your life when everything changed. And that talk, I is the most I've ever practiced for a talk, and I'm so thankful that I did, because I get a lot of compliments like that, and I've gotten so many people saying like, "Wow, it made me think a little bit differently." Um, and so I'll I'm trying to think of like how to share how this happened. So, um, I know the person that runs When Stories, and she was saying like she was doing another round of them, and so I said, yes, I want to do it. But when I initially signed up to do it, I was going to talk about, um, focus more on my son's death and like the healing journey that I went on with that. And then, and that was, so we had started, and there's like 6 weeks of coaching that lead up to us doing our stories on stage. And it was, I mean, it was like 2, 3 weeks into the coaching, and the world was falling apart. It was like February of 2025, or like just all the things that were happening in the US, and especially everything around gender. And I mean, there has been for so long, like
Yeah.
this like fight against like trans rights. And I shared a post about gender and like how it's not black and white. It's not so
Hmm.
simple. And I shared because so I am an intersex person, and for what that means is there's so many different like variations of intersex, but what it really means is that there's like there's no one real way to define it, but that like I have XY chromosomes, which is like typical for male, but I was assigned female at birth. And so um I shared this post about basically saying like according to what Trump is defining as male
Hmm.
and female, I don't fit. So where am I supposed to go here?
Yeah.
Um and so I shared a post about that, and that post, for however many years I've been on social media, that was my most like viral post ever. And it wasn't
Yeah.
about doing that. It was just about getting people to think a little differently.
Hmm.
And I mean, it was shared like hundreds of times on Facebook, lots more on Instagram, and just and the number of comments, it was so ridiculous. And I was kind of like, oh fuck. I this needs to be my when
Yeah.
stories. And I was
Yeah.
scared. Like I'm even just like get chills because I'm like, I don't feel like I want to share this story.
Yeah.
Um, Even though I had shared it publicly, but like that was just through social media. And for me, like sharing things on social media isn't necessarily that scary. It's a little scarier now because just like, the keyboard warriors and everything like that, and just like
Yeah.
thinking of the safety of my family.
Yeah.
Um, but like actually saying it in front of people sounded
Yeah.
super scary to me. And I I was getting to know the other When Stories speakers, but I'm like, I don't know how other people feel about this
Yes.
topic.
Yeah.
Um, but the person who was coaching was like, yeah, Michelle, I think you need to change what your topic is about.
Yeah.
And it worked out so perfectly because I didn't realize it till I started shifting my talk that it's like it all connected. So when I talked about, business leaders like losing themselves, it was like
Hmm.
so I found out I was an intersex person at 15 years old. So this wasn't
Yeah.
something that I just like grew up knowing. I figured it
Yeah.
out at 15 years old, which happens for several people in a similar situation to me because essentially I wasn't getting a menstrual cycle. Like I didn't get a period. And so it was like then they do all these tests to figure out what's
Hmm.
going on. And they figure out I have XY chromosomes, I don't have a uterus, and all other things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and so when I was 15, I was like, well, who am I? Am I a boy or a girl? Like, I don't,
Yeah.
because when I was 15 and like there was no social media, hardly any internet, like you wouldn't Google things back then. It was just, I
No.
felt so alone. And, and I kind of just ignored that part of me, really.
Yeah.
Um, and so, and I think that's like what so many people do now. It's like we ignore parts of ourselves to keep the status quo, to protect people around us.
Yeah.
And my mission is to help people to like be able to be themselves, and also while understanding that, it's not safe for everyone
Yeah.
to for things, especially stuff like that. It's not safe for you to just like be quote unquote like be yourself
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
Um, so even if you can't necessarily do that in public, being able to like feel safe within the coaching container or within that, so then you have places where you do feel safe. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be around identity stuff, but we do
Yeah.
attach ourselves to different identities. And if you attach yourself as, oh, I'm a nonprofit leader, so I need to give everything of myself. I need to self-sacrifice. Like that identity takes hold and it's reinforced by societal norms and things like
Yep.
that. Like, so, um, yeah, so it's just like, so back, I guess back to my WEM story is I did my talk and kind of did this full circle moment of asking these different times in my life where I asked myself, who am I? One was when I was 15 years old. And then the other was after my son died. And
Yeah.
then the third time was when there was a huge uproar about Leah Thomas, who is a Penn State women's swimmer that was a trans woman swimmer, and she won the national championship. And there was a huge uproar. And
Hmm.
that was, I think, in 2023. And that's when I like quote unquote like came out.
Yeah.
Uh, I, I essentially made a post because I saw someone's post and it was divers diving into or swimmers diving into a pool,
Yep.
and all of them had labels, and they were all labeled with an XX except one that was labeled with an XY, and it said keep biological males out of women's sports. And I was like,
Yeah.
am I a biological, like it made me kind of think like, well, am I a biological male? Because
Well, exactly. Yeah.
and and I played college volleyball, so that's where it like
Yeah.
really,
Like,
it really was like I need to share because there's different versions of what XY looks like.
well, and this is the thing because, and I'm careful about like saying this or like phrasing, but like looking at you, you would never know. And
Right.
so many people, though, that's the case. Like you would not know.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, what are you like, how can you be saying that? But it's also just like, what world do we live in where this is like the thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, to me, I mean, to not get like too deep into this, but when we talk, and I think that's where like my when stories talk, and just anytime I speak about this, my goal isn't to like change the mind of the people that are like anti-trans, and like
Yeah.
my goal is to help those people that are confused and like, oh, what? I
Yeah.
didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah.
Um, to open their minds and realize like it's not so simple. Because if we
Yes.
want to say that, okay, we're trying to, again, like quote unquote, protect women and protect women's sports and keeping men out of women's sports, well, what do we have to do? What procedures have to happen to
Well,
make sure
exactly.
everyone is a quote unquote woman? And
Yeah.
what you really, if you really break it down, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Look underneath their pants?
Well,
Like,
that's what
I mean,
they're
that's
trying to
bio
do, but for some people you wouldn't,
it
that
doesn't
wouldn't
even
even find
matter, right?
anything. Exactly.
It
Like
doesn't
that
matter,
wouldn't
and then
be,
you're violating women, and you're
yes.
and women are being harmed by this because if you don't look woman enough, then
Yes.
people assume that you're quote unquote a man or you're trans or whatever. And it's like, and this and in my own research and learning more about this too, this
Yeah.
is like this goes deep into racism too, of like
Yep.
women like Simone Biles and
Yep.
um the Williams sisters,
Yep.
the tennis players, and because they look manly, right?
Yeah.
Um, but who gets to decide that, and why is it only like women that we're worried about? There's always biological differences in people, right? No one is
Yeah.
exactly the same, and so And so getting people to just kind of take a breath and be like, it's not so simple. If it was
Yeah.
simple, then it'd be like, okay, yeah, this makes sense, but it's not that simple.
No.
And people like in my case personally, like volleyball saved me. Like it was the one place that I felt like myself
Hmm.
and that I felt like I could just be me as a kid. And
Yeah.
so, especially when we're talking about like trans kids, like they just want to be kids and they just want to play sports because they're
Exactly.
fun. And it's just a game. Like,
And
it's
that's the other
just a game.
thing. Like, what is it proving by being like, oh, no, you can't play with it? Like, what are you proving? What are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like for yourself, if they would have made you play with the boys, how would you have felt? Like, would you have
Really
even
awkward.
played?
Yeah. Right.
Like, what? It just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's so, to me, it
Well,
doesn't make any sense. And I know, like you said, it's not about changing the minds of people who are totally stuck that way. And I feel the same. I feel like it's more having these conversations for people that feel like they're not being heard or they feel like weird about it and like they can't talk about it or, you know, this is the case for them and like they haven't quote unquote come out about it, and it's more having the conversations and being like, there are people who I guess understand you. No, like it is okay. Like you're a human. I don't know what
yeah.
better
Right.
way to say it. Like seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the other thing is like, there are people that go their whole lives in the intersex world that don't even know that they're intersex, right? Unless you have
Yeah,
something that is like different or whatever, like you may not even know. So it's like that's again where it's like they might have XY chromosomes, but like
yeah,
go their most of their lives and not know. I mean, I've met people now where it's like their parents found out. I don't know if they did like genetic testing when they were in utero or whatever, but like their parents didn't even tell them till they were in their like 30s or something. And it's
that's
like,
crazy.
yeah,
That's
right. And so
crazy.
it's like, because like again, it doesn't show up the same for everyone, right? Like just
Yeah.
because I don't have a uterus doesn't mean nobody does,
Well,
right? So
exactly.
like it's just like one of those things where again, it's like it's not so easy unless you're gonna genetically test every single woman. And again, like why are we why are we doing this only for women? And is this really
Yeah,
protecting them? It's not.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's like pretty much everything else that they're doing. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm passionate about it um and that's why I really am trying to get my story out there because I feel like it gives people a pause, a moment to pause and be like, maybe maybe I like I shouldn't like jump to conclusions right away.
Yeah. 100%. And I love that, you know, I love that this is your story and then you do what you do because I feel like that allows you to understand people so much better and actually be able to like have the safe space for them to come and get what they need and like really get that support instead of, you know, I don't know, there's too much right now in the world as a whole where people aren't safe and we
Yeah.
need more people who are willing to be the safe space for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And yeah, and I think too, the other piece of it is like I'm a big advocate for like being in community too,
Hmm.
where I really enjoy group coaching or just like and it doesn't even have to be a large group, but like having because I really like coaching from a place of not being like the know it, like the I don't know everything, right? And I
Yeah.
don't know your experiences, but I can hold space for it and we
Yes.
can work through things together. And if you have a collective group of people, there might be someone in the group that, has different advice or just like
Yeah.
can you can relate to better that is really gonna help you with whatever you need help with. And that's what I like about the group aspect of it too, is that like it's not just me, it's like it's the group of people that I'm bringing together essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that also. I really, really like that too. And I find that that's so helpful for everyone. And it's truly what we need right
Yeah,
now. It like
yeah,
really, really is.
yeah. I know, because I mean I feel like it gets talked about more and more, and it got talked about a lot in the pandemic of like this loneliness, but it really
Yeah.
is like loneliness is really that's a big issue, and social media doesn't necessarily connect us, right? Like we need the
Yeah.
conversations, even if they are virtual conversations, we need the actual conversations and not just reading posts and not just whatever. It's like we need that connection with people
Hmm.
live, back and forth, that like reciprocal connection to people
Yeah.
to combat this loneliness. And that helps with like with compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma and burnout, because you don't feel like you're alone having to do this all on your own, and just being able to share about what you're going through with
Yeah.
other people that get it and other people that understand. That is, I was actually just co-facilitating something today, and we were talking about how it's like it's not therapy, but it's therapeutic. Like it
Yeah.
can feel very therapeutic even though it's not therapy.
Yes. Yes. And I love that you say that too, because we had like a little chat about this before. Um, and I was saying how, there are people who walk that line of being way too close to taking it to like, oh, I am like, I can replace your therapist and I can, you know, whatever, be like a therapist to you. And no, like, that's not, you should not be doing that. Um, and I mean, myself, I have a psychology degree, I have a nursing degree. Technically, I can provide psychotherapy for people. I've worked at an inpatient treatment center, like, and I've done this with people, but that's not when I work with clients. I am not doing that. I do mindset work a lot, but that's not it. And there is a line there that it can cross. And I find that that sometimes gets really tricky and it does get crossed with some people. And that's like also not good. But we do need to have spaces where you can have these like real, authentic conversations.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely loved having you on. And I will share the link to your Wen stories
Awesome.
because I know you want to get it over 1,000 views. So I hope that you get it like way, way over. I want it, you need to, it needs to go viral. Like,
Yeah.
needs to have its viral moment.
Yeah, it does. It does.
It does. So we will share the
Mhm.
link to that in the show notes. And where else can people find you?
Um, really any social media, if you're a LinkedIn person, if you're Instagram, Facebook, I guess I'm not technically on TikTok or anything else. So those three are the main, and just like looking up Michelle Vande Hey, you can find me as Michelle Vande Hey anywhere. If you're an email person, you can email me, Michelle at michellevandehay.com. Um, yeah, feel free to reach out and connect and just say hi or say, hey, I was listening to Tara's podcast and I appreciated the story or whatever that is. I love having conversations with people. That's my favorite thing about social media, like connecting with
Yeah.
people like you and just being able to have conversations. I love that. So
Yeah. Me too. That's my
yeah,
favorite.
yeah.
It totally is. All right. Well, I will link all of that in the show notes so that it is easy for anyone to access and you can just click through and say, hey. And thank you so much for joining me. I love this conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. I
And
appreciate it.
yes, for sure. So if you loved it as well, listening, you can give the podcast a 5-star rating and a review. And as always, go after everything that you fucking want and be unapologetic about it.